En el ifem hemos diseñado la serie de webinars La familia empresaria como factor de éxito y hoy corresponde abordar el tema de las nuevas generaciones en la empresa familiar, identidad y futuro. Y antes de presentar a nuestro invitado de lujo, permítanme compartirles el porqué de estos webinars. Nuestro propósito en el ifem es generar e integrar conocimiento, habilitar y acompañar a familias empresarias y sus líderes para que desarrollen competencias y provoquen una transformación que favorezca la generación de valor compartido y el florecimiento de la familia, la empresa y su entorno por generaciones. Por ello, esta serie de webinars está diseñada para impulsar el saber y la conciencia de una familia empresaria responsable a la luz de nuestra metodología para el desarrollo de competencias referida como gobierno y liderazgo, emprendimiento familiar, cultura intergeneracional y legado y patrimonio. Quiero agradecer de forma especial a nuestro patrocinador JP Morgan por impulsar estos espacios para las familias empresarias de México y Latinoamérica de cara a su trascendencia. También recuerden que pueden enviar sus preguntas en el chat de la plataforma y con ellas estaremos interactuando con nuestro invitado al final de su presentación. Hemos también habilitado la opción de interpretación simultánea que pueden elegir en el mundo que aparece abajo en su pantalla. En el ifem nos hemos preguntado cómo los miembros de la siguiente generación pueden desarrollar este conocimiento y habilidades intergeneracionales que les permitan liderar el futuro de la empresa y así de la familia. Y justo para abordar este tema es que hemos invitado a Eric Clinton. Eric Clinton es director del Centro de Empresas Familiares de la Escuela de Negocios de la Dublin City University en Irlanda. Su amplia producción científica e intervenciones profesionales están centradas en las empresas familiares de múltiples generaciones, con un fuerte énfasis en la transmisión de una cultura de emprendimiento e innovación entre generaciones en la familia empresaria. Y bien, Eric, bienvenido. Welcome. I'm thrilled by having you here, and hopefully soon we will have you here in Mexico. But for now, well, my friend, the floor is all yours. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Maria. Hello, everybody, and welcome from Dublin, Ireland. My name is Eric Clinton, and I'm going for the next kind of 35 minutes. I'm going to take you through the title of this presentation, The Tests of a Prince or a Princess. Say hello to Vanessa. Vanessa is 33. She's from the Spanish island of Mallorca. She comes from a third-generation family business. The family own 20 hotels on the island. They have a turnover of approximately 100 million euro, and they employ 1,500 people. Vanessa is considering whether to join the family business. And like a lot of you on the call today, she has doubts. She has questions. And these potentially are some of the questions that Vanessa has in her head. How will I gain respect? Will anybody respect me? Do they think I got a leadership position in the family business because my family owns the business? How can I move out of the shadow of my father? How can I prove myself as a leader in the family business? How can I work with senior staff who are my father's age? Should I work outside the business? Are my qualifications enough? How can I change the board of directors? How can I get the shareholders, who are my family, to support me? So these questions Vanessa have are quite similar to questions that Brian on the left and his father, Ralph Roberts, on the right had. This is a very interesting multi-generational family business. The family business, you may know, own, run, and control Comcast. Now, Comcast is a little bigger than Vanessa's third-generation Spanish family business. Comcast have 108 billion and 190,000 employees, so it's a big business. These are some of the businesses they own: NBC, NBC Sport, Golf Channel, Bravo, USA. Okay, now, but let's go back. It doesn't really matter how big the business is. It's about a father-son dynamic. And this is very typical, whether you're in Ireland, France, Spain, Mexico, it doesn't matter. Let me tell you the story of Brian and his father, Ralph. So Brian on the left went to the University of Pennsylvania, the fantastic finance degree. He's a finance whiz. He wanted passionately to enter the family business, but his dad said no. But he was persistent. I want to enter the family business. His dad said no. Eventually, the father gave in. But the father didn't give him a position in the corporate finance team, although he was a top grade A student. No. The father allowed the young heir to the throne to enter the business, but he did this. He was working, putting cables on top of flagpoles like you see here. He was working, knocking on doors, asking people to buy the cable television. But this is the prince. This is the next generation. So what happens in Brian's story? Brian was persistent, as I mentioned. At the age of 31 and 4 years into the business, an opportunity came along. Comcast bailed out Turner Corporation, and Turner worked with many of the companies you see on the top left. Ralph saw the opportunity to give his son a chance, and he put him onto the board of Turner. Brian excelled on the board of the corporation. This was 1986. A few years later, an opportunity arose with AT&T. Comcast acquired AT&T. But the father said, I've kind of done my time. I'm going to move to a chair position, and I'm going to appoint my son as the president or CEO of the corporation. This is the year 2002. Brian took a 25 billion debt at the time when the economy of the world post 9/11 was really in decline. Fortune magazine, the economists were like, whoa, major risk, very unsure about this individual's ability or capability to run and lead such a big family business. There was doubt about Brian's ability. A year later, it was a huge success. Turn around, Fortune magazine, Brian, one of the best CEO of his time. Again then, 2004, Comcast wanted to buy Disney, but there was doubts again. Is this aggressive CEO capable of running and managing the Disney Corporation? In 2005, Comcast then purchased the MGM Studios group that we know from the movies. And it was a major success. The point of the story, if we look at the life of Brian so far, from 1986 through 2005, the jury is still out on the young Mr. Roberts. And this is true in a family business. From a very young age, the next generation is questioned. Do they have the intellectual, the physical, and the emotional ability to run, lead, and manage our family business? And ironically, they're not too dissimilar to children of celebrities. Will they be equally a good movie star? Will they be equally a good singer? And the example I give you, if you're a football fan, Maybe in the 1990s, you followed Manchester United. This gentleman on the right-hand side, Peter Schmeichel, one of the world's best goalkeepers of his time. His son, who you see on the left, plays with Leicester City, is the heir to the throne, or the prince in waiting. And there was always doubt. Does Jasper have the potential or the ability that his son Peter had? And it's the same with celebrities across the world, whether it's the Kardashians or Cindy Crawford, whoever it might be. So what we're talking about is the next generation, the stakeholders in the organization, the employees, the suppliers. They have doubt about the ability or the individual capabilities of the next generation. Will they be able to lead the business, and can we trust them? I've put a picture of a fishbowl on the screen, and you might question, why do I have a picture of a fishbowl? As I mentioned, people will question, does the next generation have the intellectual, physical, and emotional ability to run the business? But a lot of next generation people in a family business grow up in a fishbowl. They are not aware of many of the external or internal stakeholders, and they often get a shock when they get challenged when they enter into the role. Somebody disagrees with them. There's an upheaval in the organization. Suppliers don't agree with their decisions. In a family business, we see this a lot. Some of the biggest family businesses across the world, whether it's the Finnish company, Astron, or Ford, or Hyatt, or Motorola, across time, we've seen scenarios where the next generation took on a leadership role, only to last maybe a year, 18 months, or 2 years. Why did they not succeed? But I want to take you back to 1914. I suspect many of you have maybe read or heard of the stories of this gentleman, Ernest Shackleton. Shackleton is a trans-Antarctic explorer. He went where man had never gone on this earth, around 1914, 1916. It was treacherous, it was dangerous, it was extreme conditions in very, very poor boats and very, very poor equipment. Now, Shackleton has been heralded as one of the best leaders of our time. But what do we know about Shackleton? The one thing I would encourage you, if you are a next generation person on this call, is followers grant leaders the authority to lead. So let me explain that one to you. If you come from a family business, maybe you own the business and your father is the current CEO. And you are maybe the male or the female, you're the next generation CEO. Perfect. So you have the coercive power. You have the power, the authority to lead the business. But that'll only get you so far. Unless you can get the stakeholders around you to be followers, then you're not going to be a leader. And it's the same thing with Shackleton. Shackleton figured out that I don't have staff or crew members, I have followers. So the question for you as you sit on a Thursday afternoon having your coffee at lunchtime is, how do I turn stakeholders into followers? Now, what do I mean when I talk about stakeholders? Stakeholders are typically what you find in any business. Trade unions, government agencies, directors, banks, suppliers. Nothing new there. However, in a family business, we've also got cousins, siblings, in-laws, and some might argue, outlaws. Right, so these are the stakeholders. The question they have is a very, very, very important one. Are we in good hands? So, my question, and one for you to think about, is how do stakeholders form opinions about leaders. So if you're Vanessa, like I showed you at the start, how do the stakeholders in her organization form opinions about leaders? And folks, I want to introduce you to this. This is Brian Roberts, as I showed you at the start, from Comcast. I want you to talk to you about iterative testing. And I'll explain to you what iterative testing means. And now, so Michael, what does it mean? Okay, here we go. I've taken it from Landsberg 2007. Iterative testing, and I'll explain it in very layman's terms. The unorganized manner in which stakeholders form opinions and narratives about a subject. So let's say it again. Vanessa is the next generation of the hotel business in Mallorca. The current employees, the board of directors, the suppliers, they don't know her. They're going to form an opinion on her. And when they form an opinion on her at the start, that's iterative testing. It's called testing because that's how stakeholders perceive what future leaders must go through to earn their trust and loyalty. So there's a number of hoops the next generation has to jump through, which are tests to prove themselves as capable to be trusted and loyal to the organization. Right. The testing starts early, from a very young age. It peaks after the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period means when the next generation person is maybe in the job for a short period of time. The current generation has left and now it's theirs. That's when I'm not sure about this person, the doubt, the uncertainty, the questions start to arise. The less information people have about the successor, the more intense the process. Right. This, for me, is an incredible slide. If you are a current next generation member of a Mexican family business and you want to start to consider, do I have the ability, either intellectually, physically, or emotionally, to lead my family business? Let's start to think about 4 tests. And I'm going to talk you through the 4 tests. The first test that a future leader in a family business will face is qualifying test. Does that person have the formal education? Potentially your company is in the construction industry. Have you done a degree in engineering? And have you done a master's degree in business? Do you have the formal education to run, lead, and manage the business? Remember, the employees or the bank or the board of directors don't particularly know you. So when they're questioning, do you have the ability, formal education is one thing they look for in the qualifying test. Do you have work experience? Have you worked for JP Morgan? Have you worked for Deloitte, Dell, Microsoft, Facebook? Have you done military service? Have you done community service? Have you excelled in a demanding role? Do you have any awards to demonstrate your professional development that are recognized potentially nationally in Mexico or internationally across the world? Like, for example, the EY Entrepreneur of the Year. Do you have any board experience, either in a for-profit or a not-for-profit? Have you done any international work experience? And have you been approved by any impartial judges? So somebody not connected to the family business. So this is the first test. Vanessa from Mallorca in the hotel industry, this is her first test. The stakeholders are testing her on these aspects. Right. And I'll go through this in more detail, but I just want to explain the test to you first. Second one is the self-imposed test. Now, what that means is, does the next generation person, like Vanessa, does she have a vision, a strategy, a business plan? Has she set norms norms, for example, around punctuality. What is harassment? What does she expect from the board? And how do you manage conflicts? But not just has she set them, but has she followed up on them? Has she controlled for performance? Has she stipulated what is punctuality? Has she stipulated what is harassment? Self-imposed tests. Circumstantial. Today, there's never been a better opportunity to explain circumstantial testing to you. Has the next generation person worked in an unplanned challenge? And what better unplanned challenge than COVID-19? The resilience of the next generation person. Have they rolled their sleeves up? Have they worked long days, early mornings, moved their family outside of Mexico to Brazil or Argentina or to France, Germany or Spain? Have they demonstrated their ability, their belief and their commitment to the family business? Have they, for example, negotiated with trade unions? Have they worked incredibly hard when the business is in decline? Have they worked equally hard when a family member has passed away? Maybe it's the CEO and there's turmoil. Have they worked hard on the loss of an employer or a supplier? Or what about the scenario when a product fails? The last test of a prince or a princess is the political test. When we enter a family business, one of the harsh realities for a next generation member is the reality that not everybody will like them. Nor does everybody want the best for you. There will be jealousy, there will be rivalry, there will be challenges. How have they managed things like malicious rumors, untruths in the organization? How have they controlled, managed dissenting viewpoints in the organization? It's the testing capacity to manage political tensions in the family business. So I'm going to go through these 4 now, but remember there's 4 tests that every prince or princess must excel in or be aware of before they enter the family business. The first test, let's go through this in a little bit more detail, and I'm going to explain it via examples. The first test, remember, was the qualification test. Did she go to university? Has she worked outside the family business? What's her track record? How much do they know about our family business? This is an example. Meet Paul. Paul's family business is in construction. They're one of the largest construction companies in the United Kingdom. Paul did an engineering degree from a top United Kingdom university. And he joined the family business as a junior engineer. And he had great ambitions to grow to senior roles. And he obviously was working with his dad. His dad contacted an engineer and said, where are the toughest construction projects we have across the world? The father sent Paul here, laying pipeline in Saudi Arabia. Harsh, hot, very, very difficult environment to work in. Paul excelled. Next, Paul was sent here to northern Canada. Extreme, extreme cold, minus 40 degrees Celsius. Paul excelled. But the father said, that's not enough. The next test I have for you, I want you to do a business degree. You're an engineer, you've done engineering, you know nothing about business. Paul did an MBA from the MIT school in Boston. Then Paul took on a project lead. And Paul was moved from the United Kingdom to here. This, if you've been, is the metro in Madrid. Paul worked in the metro in Madrid and worked on extremely difficult trade negotiations, very harsh bank deals, and very arduous negotiations with suppliers. Paul excelled. And Paul was duly appointed CEO. Why? The belief that the stakeholders had in Paul, because he had passed the qualifying test. He had the professional formal education. He had the experience working in harsh terrain, harsh conditions. He had worked autonomous and left his family and his home country of the United Kingdom and moved to Spain. A question I get asked a lot: should I work outside the family business? Should I leave the nest, as you see a picture of eggs in a bird's nest? One thing you find a lot in a family business is concern about privilege and patronage. The concept of what Vanessa at the start had: oh, you have a senior role because your family owned the business. Working outside the business, like Paul, and getting objective tests helps with credibility and helps with passing the qualifying test. The family employment policy, which I will speak about later, has a big part to play in assisting the development of the future prince or princess. But education does not always equal success. I'm very aware that some people on the call today didn't go and do an engineering degree, didn't do an MBA in Tec de Monterrey. No, they have worked almost like an apprenticeship from a very young age. They worked in the family business and worked through the family business. That's fine. However, if you have lack of formal education and you have not worked in the family business, say, for example, I have left and worked in another organization, I have no formal education. The stakeholders have no reliable evidence. I don't know this man or woman. They're a next generation. I don't know anything about them. I don't know what they're qualified in. I don't know what work experience they have. I don't know what awards they have. And it can lead to intensive scrutiny. And it can make the early tenure or early development of the leader very, very difficult. So, if you are a next generation person in a family business in Mexico or wherever you are coming from or joining this call today, the first test for you is the qualifying test. And these are some of the criteria I would like you to consider when you're asking yourself, have I passed the qualifying test? Let me give you one of the questions. Is there a good fit between what I have studied and the leadership role? Have I worked outside the family business and shown that I can succeed? Have I taken on jobs and projects whose results can be objectively measured? Folks, I will share these slides with Maria and her team at the end, but these are very, very good questions for you to grab a coffee and sit down and have a very, very honest question or an answer session with yourself. So I remember I said there's 4 tests. The second test is a self-imposed test. It's natural if you're the next generation person in a family business to have lots of ambition and drive and new products and new markets and new regions. Let's expand outside of Mexico City into Monterrey. Let's expand into Cancun. Let's go into North America, into Canada or New York or Boston. Of course you have lots of drive, passion and energy. But the self-imposed test is about balancing your inspiration with your ability to deliver. So if you talk a big game about new products, new markets, new regions, can you deliver on it? What we find from the research, stakeholders like predictability and trust. Stakeholders like it when a future leader under promises and over-delivers. Let me give you an example. This is a family business from Latin America. The family business, became aware of this family business in the year 2000. Family business is a 500 million turnover business. The father passed the business to the son on the right-hand side. The son took on the business, but at a time when the country's economy was starting to decline post 9/11, the son said, don't worry about decline in sales. I'm going to pursue growth, and I'm going to go after aggressive growth. 2 years later, it failed, and failed miserably. The son resigned, and his sister on the left-hand side was appointed. Ironically, when the sister was appointed, the first message she made to the board of directors was a quote from Winston Churchill. She said, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. So what did she do? The son had planned to build a lavish, luxurious headquarters in their hometown. She scrapped it. She incorporated a pay freeze in the organization, including herself. She set modest and achievable targets. She built trust in the stakeholders by consistently delivering. The business doubled within a 6-year period. Why? Because the stakeholders trusted her, believed in her, and respected her ability to underpromise and overdeliver. But when we look at scenarios like that, brother and sister, the self-imposed test is greatly assisted by the following. If you are a next generation person like the brother and sister there, you need to assemble a top team. You don't want people who give you the answer you want to hear. You want to have collaborators around you who will challenge your thinking. They will complement your weaknesses or your deficiencies. You need and want to have an effective board. A board should have independent directors. A board should have professional board processes, whether it's a decision-making matrix, whether it's board bylaws, board policies, employment policies with regard to family opportunities on the board. And it should very much encourage reporting transparency. Shareholders, there should and must be continual information flow between the company and its shareholders. Dividends. Dividends should be treated or given as a right for the risk shown by the shareholders in the business. And these are some of the questions of the self-imposed person or self-imposed standards. Are the expectations I'm setting achievable? Have I picked a top management team of talent? Have I treated family members and friends impartially? The third test is the circumstantial test of the prince or the princess. Have I demonstrated my ability and my resilience in difficult times? The very good example I would give you is this lady, Catherine Graham. You might know Catherine Graham, maybe you've seen the movie with Meryl Streep from the Washington Post. Catherine's husband died at the age of 48, Phil Graham, the CEO of the family business. Have you shown or demonstrated the ability when times are really, really, really tough to excel, to work hard, to roll up your sleeves in the family business? This is another example. This is an Irish family business. This lady is a lady, a fantastically nice lady, a young lady called Rachel O'Connor. Rachel O'Connor's family business is a third generation business and they make paint. Rachel took over at the 2 months before COVID COVID-19 started. You talk about trauma. What happened in my country is the weather got good over the summer and people couldn't go anywhere, so they started to paint their house. The problem is paint shops were closed. So very quickly, Rachel had to demonstrate, how do we build our business online? And almost within a week, they built a digital market presence. They built a brand around digital marketing, and a fantastic success it was. So life is a stage, folks. Please choose your battles carefully. These are some of the tests I have here around circumstantial tests. Am I willing to take on difficult challenges and crises to demonstrate my ability? Have I thought through my strategy for success? Do I know how to motivate others to collaborate with me? The last test of the prince or the princess in a family business is meeting political tests. As I mentioned earlier, not everybody is going to like you, nor will they want the best for you. You're going to get challenges. There may be a family employee who's very jealous that they didn't get the CEO role, that they didn't get a promotion, that they didn't get the new market they wanted or requested. There may be malicious rumors about you being circulated or about your abilities being circulated. There will be dissenting views. They're going to try to test your capacity to manage political tensions. But the very big thing for you is, how do you confront those who break the norms and disregard direction? Have you shown or passed the political test? What happens if stakeholders don't want to work for you? You need to be aware of how people respond to a flawed leader. If a stakeholder decides to protect and coach you, they realize that you maybe don't have the ability, but they decide to nurture you, develop you. They say good things about you, and they protect, develop, and coach you. It's a risky thing, because if you don't succeed, their loyalty comes with significant risk. The second one is, they could blow the whistle. They could announce to the board, to the top management team, this man or this woman does not have the potential to run, lead, or manage your family business. It again takes lots of courage, because if you're saying the family member doesn't have the ability to lead the business, it could lead to your demise as a non-family employee. They could hide and wait. They could say, nah, this person doesn't have the ability. The business will find him or her out. The directors in the business will identify he or she does not have the ability. However, that's risky, because if they don't, if the business fails, then you're out of a job ultimately. And the last one is, you can exit, which is hopefully self-explanatory. But it's hard to exit if you're a family shareholder. What if you're in a situation that you're a family shareholder and the CEO is a family person? If you exit as a family shareholder, it can lead to, or demonstrate to some family members that you're being disloyal, and can lead to often heated legal battles. These are some of the political tests I will share with you to think about. Can I identify everyone who is threatened by my appointment and my leadership choices? Am I aware of what my rivals for the job say and do to undermine me? So, to finish up, let's go back to Vanessa, a 33-year-old female from the island of Mallorca in Spain. What advice would I give to Vanessa? Please be aware of iterative testing. Please be aware of the stakeholders in the family business. How can you manage the stakeholder perceptions? And how you can start to do it is to understand, appreciate, and learn more about the 4 tests of a prince or a princess. The first test they will put you through is the qualifying tests. The second one is the self-imposed test. The third one is your ability to work hard, for example, during COVID-19, the circumstantial test. And the final one is the political test, your ability to understand, appreciate, and manage difficult political scenarios or situations in the family business. Thank you very much.
A great insights and presentation. Thank you very much, Eric. And now we are going to leave some space or time for the participants to ask any questions. Although I do have a couple of questions for you, Eric, and let me start with this, please, if you don't mind. Is all the skills, capacities, and or capabilities that you described and shared with us are performed by a leader. But what about when this body is not one person, but a group of people? I mean, the family, as a family team, is that possible? How can you? What is your thought in that regards? Like the leadership role by the family, not by one person at a time.
Yeah, very good question, Maria. So I will explain that through an example. I'm going to show you in a second, because I get that question a lot about sibling partnerships. Any thoughts, opinions on sibling partnership? Let me just show my slides again and explain to you an example. A really good example. Hopefully on my screen now, you see a family business. This is an Irish family business in a very traditional industry of growing potatoes. This is a 5th generation family business. The 3rd generation, this gentleman here, the second one is Peter. Now it sounds very simple for its time, but Peter was a very entrepreneurial guy. What did Peter do? I don't know if, like me, maybe when you were younger, your mother or father encouraged you to wash potatoes. You had to take the muck off the potato and you had to peel this thing. Peter was the first man in my country to introduce the washing of potatoes. Sounds very simple. It was revolutionary of its time. The business scaled 4-fold from that, national success for it. Now, then you had these next generation here. So in answer to your question, Maria, these are the next generation. You've Peter's son, his 2 sons, and his nephew. Okay, now, Tom here in the middle felt the expectation of my father. And what they decided to do was, how can we continue differently? And one of the things they did, which was really clever for its time, they moved in to crisps and crisp growing. If you fly with Emirates anywhere in the world and you get a packet of crisps, take a look at them. They come from a farm in Ireland, Dublin, Ireland, in the family business. This family business has been entrepreneurial, innovative across its generations. But what's very unique about them is, and this is Tom again with the crisp business, they've decided to work as a series of a cousin consortium. These 2 boys work on the crisps, the potatoes, and this man here is the farm, runs and manages the farm. So the opportunity to run as this case, a sibling or a cousin consortium is absolutely there and is something to be aware of.
Thank you. I have more questions, and let me ask you the following. How does this process transfer apply to family philanthropy? And continue with the same questions. What might be some key differences in the intersection between business and the foundations?
Yeah, philanthropy is an amazing thing in the family business. It's a really good opportunity for a next generation person. It's often a very good way to unite siblings in a family business, because you maybe have the mother and the father who are concerned about the next generation. What you'll normally find is one of the first investments of the family will be the philanthropy. Maybe some of the bigger business and maybe have a family office, but the opportunity for philanthropic investment is a good opportunity to bring people together, to articulate your rationale or your reason for investing in a charity or a region or a cause, and then for a family to agree on what is our chosen strategy or approach to that investment, and then how do we manage it? How do we report back to the board if that is your scenario? So the logics around philanthropy and giving back in a family business are very important, and they can be a very good way, because one of the things I encourage you to think about if you come from a family business are values. What makes family business unique? Get that question a lot. Think about it. One of the things you'll probably think is, yeah, we take a long-term perspective. Okay, I agree with you. But what makes you unique are your values. How do you pass values from a father to a son, from a mother to a daughter? A very good way is through the role of giving back. And philanthropy is a good way to get next generation members before they join a board, before they take on potentially leadership roles in the business. It's to get them aware of investing, relatively low risk investments, but it has and does serve a purpose in a family business.
Here, a couple of questions. Actually, when I was listening to you, I was thinking more about the dynamics when both next gen and senior generation are actually in the business or in any other role. And here I have a similar question, like how to nurture or how to promote, how to cultivate those activities, those activities, that mindset that allows the next gen to be part of, to love the business, to feel that passion and be aware, not by a test, but by her or his beliefs, right? And here, one of the participants is asking, easy to structure the whole thing, but what would you tell a next generation? What should be the first step he or she should do to start gaining confidence, especially if the previous generation and parents do not give signals of approving involvement? I don't know if it's clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, very good question. Some things, it depends on what age they are, but in general, I'll give you some suggestions. What can help is that if we mention the qualifying test, formal education, working outside, any awards, any credibility. Other things I think are very important in a family business are mentors. I see family business people, next generation people, all day, every day. And I typically encourage you to have 2 mentors minimum. I would encourage you to have a mentor if you are inside the family business, who you can ask those difficult questions to. But I would also encourage you to have a mentor outside the family business. Someone you can steer you. Maybe if someone comes from another family business. How did you have that difficult conversation? How did you first enter the business? How did you have a difficult conversation with your siblings? What about working late, early mornings? Excuse me. So the role of the mentor is fundamentally important. With regard to the circumstantial test I mentioned, think about, is there an opportunity in the family business for you to demonstrate your credibility? And never, like anywhere before, has COVID and the COVID pandemic given that opportunity. The reason being, in my country, and I suspect in your country, most stores were closed. And a lot of smaller family businesses couldn't trade. The need to develop an online presence, whether it's selling via Amazon or eBay or whatever it might be. But we found that the current generation were not maybe tech savvy. They were dependent on their next generation, their siblings, to demonstrate the capacity to develop a digital marketing strategy or even sales strategy online. So think about an opportunity for you to demonstrate your ability where there is a relatively good chance. It's going to be difficult, but there's a good chance of success. That's the circumstantial test I would encourage you to think about.
Thank you, Justin. And there's a couple of questions that I'm going to try to put them together, but it goes with our conversation previous to this talk. And what about those next gen that they are aware of the shadow of their parents, or the senior generation, but they also have this this entrepreneurial spirit and this eager to, to demonstrate that they can do it, and they can do it on their own. And sometimes it's okay. This is a fund for new ventures, but it must be within the business, the core business, or is it allowed to, as a recommendation, someone is asking to allow the next gen to go on their own, their own path, their own new venture. And what is your advice on that?
Yeah, so again, this is a very good question and a very common question that people ask. I would encourage you, and I can share with you after this, Maria, start to look at paradox in family firms, because the question that this person is asked a lot. In a family business, you need to manage two things. You need to manage tradition and change. So the legacy of my father, my grandfather, or my grandmother, whatever it might be, the past. How do I respect, value, build on the past, but continue differently? And there's lots of examples of it. A fascinating example in my country, and I can share the case study with you, is Teeling whiskey. If you drink whiskey, if you drink Irish whiskey, if you're in a bar, maybe you're in a cocktail bar in Mexico City this evening, go to the cocktail bar and ask the barman or barwoman, do they have Teeling whiskey? Take a look at Teeling whiskey. It's a fascinating story. Why? Because the current generation, guys in their 30s, said, yeah, I love my mother, my father. I respect the tradition and legacy of the past, but I don't want to continue to do what they did. They decided not to target the older generation man, particularly men, by selling drinks. No. They've gone after the early 20s. It's very much this blue ocean strategy. Read the Blue Ocean textbook, great textbook for next generation leaders in the family business. So my point to you, if you are from a family business, you do want to have some autonomy, start to read case studies about other family businesses that have identified the paradox of the tradition and the past, and see how they started to progress on that path to build a strategy which builds on the legacy and looks to the future.
Great advice. And we have no time for more questions, but we do have more questions. So I will try to answer them, to all of the questions that participants have generously asked us. But let me take this minute to thank you again, Eric, and allow me to switch to Spanish to say goodbye to the participants. But thank you very much, and stay safe, and see you very soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Y desgraciadamente el tiempo se nos ha terminado, pero los queremos invitar nuevamente a que nos acompañen al quinto y último webinar de esta serie, que será el 1 de julio a la misma hora. Será sobre gobernanza e innovación en la empresa familiar, impartida por nuestro amigo Gonzalo Jiménez, profesor de la Universidad Católica de Chile, y aprovecho para saludar a los amigos frecuentes de la Asociación de la Empresa Familiar de Chile. Muchas gracias por siempre estar con nosotros en esta serie de webinars. Y bueno, no olviden ingresar a nuestra página del IFEM, formar parte de nuestra comunidad y aprovechar los recursos que hemos ido creando para que ustedes los puedan aprovechar y disfrutar con sus familiares y crecer en esta divina aventura de la trascendencia, del florecimiento de nuestras familias empresarias. Y bueno, por último, pedirles que nos sigan en redes sociales. Nos sentiremos muy halagados de que sigamos formando y dándole esta fuerza a nuestra comunidad del Instituto de Familias Empresarias del Tecnológico de Monterrey. Muy buenas tardes y muchas gracias.